negating a selector. So again, these are just more devices to get really specific with your CSS rules, thereby avoiding adding more code to your HTML by adding classes or IDs or some other attribute. So a pseudo selector, there generally are two kinds. Ones that select elements with specific states, like hovering over a link, or if a link has been selected, maybe it's a different color so the user can see that, oh, I've already clicked on that link. And then ones that select certain elements of a set based on where they are in a tree. And so we'll take a look at what that means, but that's going to be something like, just add some styling to the last element in my nav bar, for example, things like that. So here's an example, or 5 examples of link and form elements depending on their state. And so hopefully some of these are familiar. So there's pseudo selectors are, you know it's a pseudo selector because it has that colon in front of it. So there's hover, so it's going to select elements as you hover over them. Active, so if you're currently on a particular page, maybe that nav link has some sort of styling rule attached to it so you know what page you're on. Focus, so focus is when you're using a form and maybe you tab through the input fields. Focus is the specific field that you're currently typing in, whatever field you're focusing on. Visited, so selects the links that have been visited. And then checked, so if we're making sure that like a checkbox has been checked, maybe that checkbox affects other items on the page. So maybe if you're looking at recipes on a page, and there's a checkbox for, you know, chicken or beef or veggie. If you click on a checkbox, maybe you want certain recipes highlighted based on that checkbox selection, for example. Cool. So I'm going to select out these exercises. And we can do these together if you want. This isn't meant to be like super stressful or anything. So I think we'll just do these together. So let's go ahead. We'll do these in the same main folder that you guys created earlier, but we have those 2 extra files now, right? You should have a pseudo HTML and a pseudo CSS file. So go ahead and open those up just to kind of keep these 2 lessons separate if you want to go back and revisit them. And I'm going to share my screen and we will get to it. So if you open up that file, I'm going to go ahead and set mine up. Sudo, I need to put my link in here. And this one is going to link to my pseudo.css. Cool. And then let me open this up in my Browser Plus. So again, Browser Plus is an additional package that you can download for Atom if you're so inclined. Again, for what we've been doing today, it's been really helpful, but it's not going to like run and spin up a node server for you. It's not quite that advanced. But let's walk through these 5 exercises. So in an HTML file, let's create 2 links. One that goes to a site that you visited, and one that goes to a fake URL that you haven't visited. So we really get to play around with some fake stuff here. So if you want to go into the body, let's create 2 A tags. And for this one, I'm going to put in Google. So this will be like the legitimate one. So we'll do google.com. And then maybe for a fake one, let's do, actually, you guys are probably realizing I'm very fond of schmitty.com, which actually may be a site. I don't even know, but
I'd be surprised if it wasn't.
Well, if it isn't, it sure is going to be now, because I'm going to GoDaddy that domain after we're done here. Actually, just to be safe, I'll put some Y's at the end. All right, so we have 2 links. Let me refresh my Browser Plus here. Make sure that these are rendering correctly. Let me reopen that over here. Oops. Yeah, this Browser Plus plugin is super, super handy, but sometimes it takes up a lot of memory. It's not quite as efficient as using Google Chrome directly. So I'm loading that. Why aren't you loading? What am I missing here?
Text, but
What's that? Oh yeah,
text.
thanks. Yeah, that's right. Thank you. Yeah, I need to make sure this actually does it. All right, cool. We are in biz. Let me drag this over there. All right, cool. So we've got our two links. We want to add some rules. One that goes to a site that you visited, one that goes to a fake URL you haven't visited. Okay, we did that. So now let's style the hover, active, focus, and visited properties. We're not going to worry about focus right yet because we're going to need some sort of like form input field for that to make that really work nicely. But let's create some of these pseudo selectors. So we're going to do this on the A tags, the links. This first one, let's do a hover. And when one of these is hovered, let's make the font size, let's try to make this really obnoxious, like font size 40px. And so if we refresh, cool. So now when I hover over one of these, that pseudo selector kicks in. And so I can kind of see which one I'm hovering over. Cool, nice and annoying. So active. Let's check out active. For active, let's put a color of red on here. Let's see if this actually will work. Cool, so we could see it just slightly there. When you actually click on it, you can see that just for a minute, it turns red, like because it's active for that millisecond that we click on it. So we know that active is working. Actually, if I just hold down my mouse, you can see that active is working. Cool. Yeah, how about visited? Let's check out visited. That's a really good one. You can do visited, and then maybe make like the font weight just to play around. We'll make it bold. And then maybe we'll make the color, well, usually if you visited something, what is it? It's usually like maybe purple. I guess it varies, but I'm going to do green just so we can see some differentiation here. So let me click on that and then click on Schmitty. And then if I go back, I think this is going to be wonky because I'm in the Atom Browser Plus. So that's why that's not working. But if we pop this, well, you guys are probably using Google Chrome. So if you put it into Google Chrome, it should work correctly. It's just kind of the way that the Browser Plus in Atom works. Yeah. That's a weird one because we're not persisting our history here. But in any event, that's how you would add a visited. If we were actually hosting this thing and we wanted to keep track, you could do that pseudocode of visited. And then finally, focus. So if we want to do focus quickly, I'll put a label in here and we can see if that will work for us. Or excuse me, an input. So let's do an input field. I'm going to make this type of text. Here's our attribute of name, which we were talking about earlier. And so down here, I'll just put this on inputs in general. So input focus. And I don't know, make the color like yellow. Actually, I'm going to make the background yellow. So if I have like several fields, at least I know which one I'm currently working on. So when I click into there, the focus is focused on that input field, and I get that yellow background. So maybe a little annoying, but that's the idea with that focus pseudo selector. And then finally, let's create a checkbox and a label. So I mentioned earlier that you can have checkboxes connected to other elements and such, and you can have them affect each other. So let's take a look at this 3, 4, and 5 and see what that looks like. So let's create another input type over here because a checkbox is an input type. So we'll do input and then checkbox. And then for this trick to work, let's add an ID to this. So go ahead and make an ID, and I'll call this, let's call this hide me. So let's make an ID of hide me on the checkbox. And then underneath it, let's make a label tag. And see how when you create again, if you just start typing in label or the full word label and hit tab and add them, it's really nice and will complete it for you. But notice the attribute. So 4 is an attribute on our label tag, and it says 4. So this is a label for what? And in this case, we're going to make this a label for our input of hide me. I'll make this a little wider. So I'm going to put hide me in here. And so that's telling our HTML that these two elements are connected somehow. And then I'm going to put in this label like click to show. So click on this label for something to show or render. All right, cool. So that's the HTML. And now let's add some properties, some rules to this actually. So to start, let's do another input. Actually, I'm just going to add it to this one. I'm going to get rid of the focus for a moment. So this input tag, this input rule is going to apply to both my text and my checkboxes, but we'll worry about that later. For now, I'm going to start this off with display none. So we'll put that rule. So when this initially renders, the inputs will not be displayed. However, when I click on this label, let's add a pseudocode for that. So let's do an input and a pseudo selector of checked. So when an input is checked, plus let's also do the sibling of a label. And then the rule that we're going to put in here, or the property, is background of red. So what did we just add here? Well, let's just see this thing in action and see what happens. So here I have this click to show. The input field, the input text box has gone away, right? Because that's still not displaying. In fact, I'm just going to go and get rid of that so it's not confusing. And the checkbox is still like not displaying. However, when I click on the label, I'm still changing the background to red. So if we were sending this to a server or something, maybe we don't want that annoying checkbox like actually to show, but maybe we want some sort of label that will act as kind of an alias for that checkbox. This would be one strategy to do that. So if you don't want that annoying checkbox to show up, you could attach it to a label and hide the checkbox, but have the label be, you know, kind of that checkbox on off, truthy and falsy, or true and false rather. So that's how we could do that. Let me stop sharing my screen, and I will Slack out this code just so you guys have it for now. Any questions about
I had a
the first
question.
section? Sure.
For some reasons, my colors do not show up. I don't know why. like whatever color I add, I can't see it. I see the rest of the CSS, but not the colors.
So you're sure that your style sheet is wired up correctly?
I think it is because I see the hover thing, I see the active thing.
Okay.
But I don't the colors like red or green.
Okay. Do me a favor if you would. We have like 14 minutes before lab time. I'm happy to help you, but if you could wait just a minute, if you don't mind pinging Christine, maybe she can help walk you through it. And if you're still not like sorted out in a few minutes, I'm happy to we'll do a screen share and get you going.
Okay, we'll do it later.
Yeah. So this first section of pseudo selectors, love to do a quick fist of 5. How are you guys feeling about these? Like 5 being rock star, 1 being, okay, so pretty good. So hopefully some of those we've seen before, particularly like the colon hover pseudo selector, maybe even the active and the visited. Hopefully those are familiar. Let's take a look at some other really helpful pseudo selectors. So these, for example, are helpful if you want to style the first and last elements of a container. So these pseudo selectors, there's options such as first child, first of type, last child, or last of type. So again, this is just kind of a greatest hits, some of the pseudo selectors that are available to you. But for example, let's say that you have a to-do list, and maybe you're constantly going to be like, adding or deleting those to-dos as they're completed. Maybe one of these pseudo selectors would be helpful because maybe as soon as you add a new to-do to that list, maybe you want some sort of pseudo selector that will only, maybe it'll make that new to-do flash for a moment, or maybe it'll change the color of it or something to designate that it's a new to-do on your list, something like that. But maybe you don't know what order, maybe you don't know if it's going to be the first to-do or, the 10th to-do on your list, but it's going to be like the newest one. So maybe you could use some sort of pseudo selector to just put styling on that, first of type or last of type, or first child, last child, however you want to set up your code. So that may be a use case for this. Let's take a look at this exercise and we'll see an example. So 3 little steps here. And I'll go ahead and share my screen as we walk through these. So the first thing we want to do is create 4 inline block elements. That is a mouthful. So to do that, I'm going to comment this stuff out. And then I'm going to create 3 A tags. So let's pretend that we're creating a nav bar. And I know that like nav bars are very typically, an unordered list with a bunch of LIs. But just for demo purposes, let's do this. And so let's put link number 1, link number 2, and link number 3. And since these are A tags, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to comment out all of the CSS, just so these other rules that I've applied to A tags with these pseudo selectors, we just want to clear those out for this example. Cool, so we have these 3 A tags, and it looks like they're all in line pretty nicely, so that's good. Actually, let's create 4 of those, just to be exact. And I'll make that link number 4. Cool, and let's just pretend like this is some sort of nav situation. Let's give each of these A tags a property of border right with 1px solid black. So this is just going to be generally on every A tag. I'm going to make it 2px just so it'll be a little bit more visible. 2px solid black. Then if we refresh. Cool, so oftentimes you see this maybe with navs or maybe like on a footer, maybe if you're going to like center some links or some sort of extra content. maybe you have these little vertical separators between your links. The only problem with this is if we put a border right on every link, maybe I don't want a right border on this last link, right? It doesn't look right. I only want the borders in between two neighboring links. So how could I get rid of that last border on the right side of my link number 4? Well, a perfect candidate for pseudo selectors. So let's set it so the last inline block, the last A tag, does not have a right border. Well, there's probably a couple ways we could do this, but let's try a tag. We could try last of type. Let's try last of type here. And then I'm going to set my border to, let's try setting it to like my border right. Maybe I'm going to set this to like a 0px. Let's see if that works. So it should only turn off that last one. Cool. So that may be an example of when that type of pseudocode would be handy. So give me the last of type for an A tag and turn off the border right on that particular tag. So that gives us a little bit more balance and structure in this particular situation. I'll put this code into Slack for you guys. I'm going to stop my screen share. Cool. Any questions about that one? Slack out my CSS and my HTML here. So I think we have one more section and then we'll be at lab time. So I know you guys are itching to actually practice some of the stuff we've gone over today. Cool. Just Slack that to Christine instead of you guys. Let me re-Slack this out. Let me fix my little tags there. Any questions while I'm slacking this out? Fist of 5, how do you guys feel about those, like last child, first child, last of type? Okay, cool, seeing some 5s, that's good. Cool, that's a little bit cleaner there. Oh yeah, Adam mentions border right none. Yeah, that would work as well. For sure. I'm gonna make Christine the co-host so she can go ahead and prep us some lab time rules, breakout rooms. So bear with me for a second. Christine, if you want to Slack me, it looks like I'm not able to, because I think I'm co-host. Looks like I'm not able to pass the mic.
That is host right now.
Okay. So Matt, maybe if you wouldn't mind making Christine co-host. I'm happy to make the rooms too in just a moment.
Real quick, Mark, how big did you want the rooms?
I don't know. Let's poll the crowd. Give me like a fist of 5. What are you guys comfortable with? Do you want like 3 to a room, 4 to a room, 5 to a room? I know we want to try to mix up the groups.
3?
3s?
Okay.
Yeah, 3 is a pretty good number.
Cool.
Cool, thank you. All right, so the last section for our pseudo selectors. Let's take a look at some of these options here. So if we want to style an element depending on what child number it is of a parent. So these are actually pretty interesting. You can actually get into like some mathy, equation-y. I was told there would be no math in this debate, but we're going to go for it. So this top section, these selectors, these pseudo selectors, nth child, nth of type, nth last child, nth last of type. So basically what these parentheses allow you to do is you can put numbers, or you can actually put some sort of equation within these parentheses, and it will select the different elements accordingly. So let's say that we have, in this example we're about to do, we're going to create a UL with maybe like 10 or 11 LIs inside. Maybe every third LI, I want it striped, or I want it to be some sort of color. These pseudo selectors here, let you choose every fourth element, or every 4n plus 1 or something, however crazy you want to get. They're pretty cool actually, and we're going to take a look at those here shortly. And it says here, what can n be? So let's say we want to do a little bit of algebra in here. Don't want to scare you guys, but if that's your thing, you can totally put in a little bit of an equation with a variable. So n can be a number. You can actually type in even or odd, and that will work as well, which is pretty cool. And again, one thing to note, this is not based on index, so this is not zero based. If you put in the number 1, it's literally going to grab the first one. If you put in the number 3, it's going to grab every third one. So it's not like an index type of value. And we'll take a look at these formulas here shortly when we look at an example. And then finally, 2 more cool options for pseudo selectors. And we looked at these a little bit earlier. We had last of type, first of type. But you can also have only child, only of type. So those are available to you. If there's an only child, or only one type of tag or element within some other element, you can use those as well to get really specific. And there's also a colon not selector if you want to negate a selector. So apply this rule to everything except this other thing. So if you want to kind of do the opposite, you can use that not selector. So sometimes that's handy. Cool. Let's look at some quick examples, and then we'll hop into lab time. Yeah, does someone have a question?
Yes. So if we're saying the nth last child, and I want, let's say, the second A tag, and that's a child of a P tag, would it be P semicolon nth last child 2?
Do me a favor. Can you scaffold that up, then we can take a look?
Well, yeah, let's just look at some examples. I'm sure they'll
Yeah.
answer it. Sorry, never mind.
Sorry, I can't. My brain's not that quick.
Yeah, neither's mine. I had a tough time saying it. Never mind.
But no, we'll totally take a look at that. All right, let's bang out these 2 exercise examples. So step 1, let's create 8 elements with widths such as we have 2 rows of 4 elements. So we're going to have a row of 4 and a row of 4. You can put in 5, 6, whatever you want to do, but that's what we're going to start with. And I'm happy to Slack out this code if it's helpful. But I'm gonna let me comment out those A tags, and I think what I'll do, I want to create. I'll create a couple of divs here. I'll create 8 divs actually. Actually, I'm not going to do that. I think a UL is going to be easier. So let's create a UL. And then I'm going to create another UL under it. So then we'll have, and this is going to stack actually, so we're going to need to fix this a little bit. And I'm going to put some numbers in here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And let me make sure this is working, and I'm happy to Slack this out if you don't want to deal with it. I don't blame you. I'm going to comment out those other rules in my CSS just so nothing interferes with anything else. So I'm going to make these LIs. Let's make these, make them float right. And then I'm going to take away that text decoration. So I'm going to go to list style and put none on there. Okay, so they're still not in two rows though. Let me try this. Let me try to put a UL. Try that. This isn't gonna work. Let me. Ooh, I misspelled display. No. Let me try. Let me try a BR in here just to get this thing going. Okay, close enough. I know it's not super sexy, but that'll work for us. I'm going to make the font size just a little bigger here, just so we can see it better. Okay, cool. If it's not totally aligned, that's fine. We're just going to play around with these nth of selectors. So cool. I can slack this out if you want.
Mark, were you meaning to share your screen during that?
Oh my God. I'm so sorry, you guys. Yeah, let me share my screen.
I'm like, why is no one saying anything? Perfect, thanks. And Mark,
I
can you
just
see
assumed
what-
that he really wasn't sharing his screen.
I think everyone, including myself, my brain is dust after these selectors. Sometimes this is like we're in the trenches here trying to do this stuff. Let me select this out real quick. So I just created two ULs with some LIs. Again, this doesn't have to look great. Just want to play around with these nth of types and such. And here's the CSS that I used just to get us up and running here. Cool. And you can see right here, again, it's out of alignment. It's not perfect. It's fine. We just need something that we can play around with these pseudo selectors. Cool. So using only CSS, let's set it so the first elements of both rows have a different background color from the other elements of the row. So as I look back at what we just went through, let's try this first one, the nth child. So this looks like a good candidate because we have two ULs, and in both cases, I want to grab the first LI in each UL, essentially the first child or the nth child. So what these are going to look like, let's do an LI and a colon, because all these pseudo selectors, you definitely know they're pseudo selectors because of their colon. That didn't really come out the way I wanted it to. My apologies. So let's do nth child, and we want to grab the first one. Again, this is not index based, so it's not like we need to put 0 in here. And in fact, I would suggest anytime that we're dealing with JavaScript or anything, when you see parentheses and you put some sort of value in there, it's always going to be literally like number 1, number 2. Now, if this was a square bracket, then that's a really good hint that we would need to use an index. And that's pretty like industry language standard across everything. I'm going to make the background of the first element, we'll make it red. The first child should be red. And so there we go. So this is actually backwards because I did a float right. So I could change this to a float left, and this would be in a better order. I'm going to do that right now, actually. So there we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8. So we just grabbed the first child of whatever containing element, whatever the parent is. Let's grab the first instance of that. So that's nth child. Let's play around with some of these equations, some of these other options, just so you guys can get a feel. So let's say that I wanted to grab every odd element in here. Let me see if this one, so if I refresh, so just by putting the word odd or even, it'll grab the odd and even child elements within some sort of parent element. You could also do like one of those n+1s. So let's say that I wanted to grab every third element. I could do, for example, a 3n, and then if I refresh, So I'm grabbing 1, 2, 3, and then here I'm grabbing the third element out of that set. Now if I had, actually I'll do it real quick for you guys. I'm not going to change the numbers in the interest of time, but I'm going to put just a ton of LIs right here. And maybe this will look a little bit more like Christmas lights or something. So if I refresh now, so we can see that every third element.
Hey Mark, just so you know, you're only sharing your Atom screen. You're not showing your whole desktop. So we don't actually see the results.
I do. It's on the right.
Yeah, the result is here, the Atom,
Okay,
the Browser Plus.
Okay, let me exit. See if that.
Maybe it's too wide or something, but make it a little smaller here.
Oh no, I gotta know. I'm not sure.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so again, this is just kind of a quick and dirty demonstration that this is a way to, grab every third element. If I wanted to do like, 4 in, it would grab every fourth. So sometimes that's handy, right? And then I'll leave some of these extra ones if you guys want to play around with it in lab time. You could also put in some sort of equation. So for example, I could do like 5n minus 1. And let's see what that does. So that's going to grab like every fourth element, right? So 5 minus 1. So there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with these pseudo selectors. And you can also grab particular elements from like the end of the, so right now we're grabbing like all the child elements in order. You can also do it like from the last element and kind of do the indexing backwards if you want. A lot of variety here. If you guys want to check it out more, you can absolutely go through the documentation. I'm going to stop my screen share now. And I'll get a quick fist of 5 just to see how you guys are feeling about this. And I'll say it one more time. This isn't stuff you have to memorize. We just want to make you aware of it because these are some really handy hacks that you can use. So like a fist of 5, couple of 5s, couple of 4s. Okay, all good. Well, thanks for slogging through that, you guys. No more.
I got a question.
Yeah.
What's the difference between nth child and nth of type?
So nth child would be any element, any child element. Nth of type would be just give me the nth element of this specific type of element. So if I had a div that had LIs and P tags and spans, you could use that nth of type. Like grab me the 4th span tag specifically within this parent containing element.
So you wouldn't put anything on the left of the parentheses?
Let's take a look at that in a second, if you don't mind. Let me get the lab time going, and then we can take a look at that. So Christine's creating the breakout rooms. Let me walk through the lab time, and we'll get you guys rocking and rolling here. So I'll Slack out the lab stuff. This is also in your student labs folder. But here is your lab time, if you choose to accept it. So if you guys want to click on that README, we will walk through this together. I'll give you a second to click on that. So I try to give you guys a couple of like options, depending on all the coverage we've had today. Feel free to skip through this stuff. If you're really interested in fonts, play around with the fonts. If you're not, you can move forward. But I'm going to share my screen so we can walk through these exercises. It's not expected that like you're going to get through all of these during lab time, but I just want to give you guys some options based on what tickled your fancy today. Okay, so the first challenge right here, if you want to practice fonts, create a new directory in your student labs folder called My Lab Work. And like we did today, if you want to create an index.html and a style.css, specifically write some text using Google's Rock Salt font. So just a challenge there. If you want to play around with sprites, like we did earlier, you can use the same code we went through this morning, but here's a different style sheet. And so if you click on this, if you right click, you can save the image if you want to download it and save it locally. Or you could also open the image in a new tab, and then you could use this URL to grab the sprite also. So either way. But if you want to play around with sprites, here's a new sprite sheet if you want to play around with some of those icons. Icon fonts. So this is similar. So this says icon fonts. So if you want to play with like icon fonts, or if you just want to download some fonts from Fontzello, we looked at Font Squirrel today. If you want to just find an interesting free font and try to download it and stick it into your app, you could do that as well. Here's a James Bond responsive site. So I have this open in a separate browser. And you can click on this. This folder is in your Student Labs directory, so you can work directly in there. And the idea is to add some CSS properties that will make this responsive. So this is the stuff we went over before lunch. So when this is kind of at a larger browser type viewport, this is what the navbar looks like. But as we get smaller, at some point, this is going to turn into a more, kind of mobile, user-friendly type of visual. So the idea is to make this navbar responsive and just get a little bit of practice with the responsive design. Finally, this is a really fun game. I was doing this earlier this week. I think Christine's a big fan of this as well. I don't know if anyone has seen this before, but this is it's called Fluke Out, and it's hosted up on GitHub. And this has about 26, I'm on like 11 of 26, I need to finish this, but there's like 26 questions, and it helps you deal with the selectors, the painful selectors that we went through this afternoon. So if you want to get a little bit more help or a little bit more practice with selectors, you can do it here. And the way that this app works is, for example, it says select everything on a plate. So all of these little things are dancing, right? And I can see the HTML here. So we talked about that earlier. The universal selector with the splat would be a good candidate for this. So if I hit enter, type in a CSS, oh, my bad. So you do the selector and then you do the styles in here. What am I missing?
Try plate space asterisk. So
Everything on the plate. Sorry, I misread that. Yeah. So you do plate. Cool. And so I passed that one. So I grabbed the plate tags, specifically all of them with that asterisk. And so these get pretty challenging, actually. So here's adjacent sibling selector, that plus sign. So we went over that this afternoon. So this is a pretty fun visual site. So thought you guys may have fun playing around with this. So that's our lab time. Again, whatever you want to work on is fine. If you guys just want to play that selectors game to get more selector practice, feel free. I just wanted to give you guys maybe some creative lab exercises to work on. So any questions before we hop into our breakout rooms? Alrighty, so we'll see you guys around 5:30. We're gonna hop into our instructor powwow, and just ping us if you have any questions. And we'll see you guys soon.
Does the whole group have to work on the same thing?
No. Yeah, Phil, I'll put that into Slack. Yeah, you guys can work on whatever. Just use each other for support.
and you're still recording.
Well, thank you.